Before I say anything else, I need you to understand something. What I am about to share with you is not something most women will ever say out loud. Not to their friends, not in interviews, not in the kind of content that gets made for public consumption. Because saying it out loud requires admitting something that goes against every cultural script we have been handed about what women are supposed to want and who we are supposed to want it from. But I am done with that script. And if you stay with me through this entire video, I am going to give you something real. Not theory, not psychology dressed up to sound impressive, real. The actual thing that older men do without realizing they are doing it, that makes women respond in ways they cannot always explain and refuse to admit. I am telling you this as a woman from the inside, and I need you to hear it that way. Let me start with something that happened to a woman I know well. She is 34. She was at a work event, the kind of low-stakes professional gathering where conversation is mostly functional and forgettable. There was a man there, 61 years old. Nothing remarkable about his appearance. Not the tallest person in the room, not the most obviously polished. But at one point during the evening, she found herself standing near him while he was talking to someone else. And she told me later that she became completely unable to focus on anything else in the room. Not because of what he was saying, because of how he occupied the space around him, the stillness of it, the way he was not reaching for anything, not trying to be funnier, not angling to be impressive, not monitoring the room for how he was landing. He was simply, completely, unhurriedly there. And she felt something she could not name for 3 days afterward. That is what I'm here to explain today. Because what she felt was not accidental. It was not luck. It was the result of something specific that older men carry, or the best of them carry, that younger men almost never have. And once I show you exactly what it is and exactly what it does to a woman's nervous system, you will understand why women cannot admit it. Because admitting it means admitting that what we actually respond to is almost nothing like what we say we respond to. Here's the first thing, and I want you to really hear this because most men, including most older men, do not know they have it. Older men who are at peace with themselves do not monitor the room. This sounds simple. It is not simple. It is one of the rarest things in any social space. Think about the last gathering you were in. Look around mentally. Nearly every person in that room was on some level monitoring. Monitoring how they were being perceived, monitoring whether they were interesting enough, relevant enough, appropriately dressed, appropriately confident, monitoring the reaction of the people they were speaking to. And all of that monitoring is visible, not consciously visible, but felt. A woman's nervous system is extraordinarily calibrated to pick up this kind of ambient self-consciousness in the men around her. She does not have to think about it. She registers it the way you register temperature when you walk into a room. She just knows whether it is there. When a man is not monitoring, when he is simply present without requiring anything back from the room, the quality of the space around him changes completely. Women feel it as ease, as permission to be themselves, as the specific and unusual relief of being near someone who is not asking anything of them, not for validation, not for attention, not for the performance of interest, just presence, genuine, unhurried, needless presence. Most younger men, through no fault of their own, have not arrived at this yet. They are still in the years where self-monitoring feels necessary, where the room's response to their presence still matters deeply to their sense of self. And women feel that need in them even when nothing is said, even when the younger man is doing everything right on the surface. The need is underneath and it is loud and it changes the quality of every interaction. She becomes, without realizing it, subtly responsible for managing that need. Subtly responsible for responding in ways that confirm his adequacy. And that subtle responsibility is exhausting in ways that women rarely have language for. The older man who has stopped needing the room to confirm him removes that responsibility entirely. And the removal of it, that sudden lightness, feels so unusual, so rare, so almost startling in its relief, that women respond to it in ways they do not fully understand. They find reasons to be near him. They find themselves paying attention to what he says, not because he is performing for them, but precisely because he is not. They find themselves more honest, more open, more themselves in conversations with him than in conversations with men who want something from them. And that openness, that freedom to simply be rather than manage, is something a woman will not forget. Now, here is the second thing, and this one is even harder to talk about because it touches something that women have been told they should not want. Older men who know themselves do not need to be agreed with. This sounds small. It is enormous. Let me show you why. a man who still needs external validation, a man who is still in the process of building his identity through other people's responses, cannot tolerate sustained disagreement from a woman he is drawn to. It does not feel like a difference of opinion to him. It feels like a threat. And so he does one of several things. He pushes back too hard, making the disagreement about being right rather than about the idea. He withdraws emotionally, creating a chill that teaches her not to challenge him. He overcorrects in the other direction and agrees with everything she says in a way that is equally dishonest. Any of these responses collapses the possibility of genuine intellectual intimacy because genuine intellectual intimacy requires two people who can hold different positions without either of them disintegrating. An older man who knows himself, who has been wrong enough times to understand that being wrong does not diminish him, who has had enough real conversations to know that a different perspective is more interesting than an agreeable echo, holds disagreement completely differently. He listens to it. He considers it. He sometimes changes his mind and says so without shame. He sometimes maintains his position and says so without aggression. And in that steadiness, in that capacity to hold the friction of genuine difference without either collapsing or becoming cold, something extraordinary happens for the woman across from him. She feels safe to actually think out loud. Safe to say what she actually believes rather than what she thinks he wants to hear. Safe to be intellectually herself rather than performing an agreeable version of herself. And that safety, that specific freedom to be genuinely present in a conversation rather than managing it is one of the most compelling things a woman can experience. Because most of her conversations with men, even good men, even well-intentioned men, require some degree of management, some calibration of what she says based on what she anticipates he needs to hear. And the man who releases her from that calibration, who makes it safe to simply think out loud without consequences, becomes someone she wants to keep talking to, someone she thinks about after the conversation ends, someone she finds reasons to return to. The third thing is the one that most directly drives women completely and silently crazy. And I am going to be as specific as I can about it because this is the one that almost never gets named. Older men who have arrived at genuine selfhood notice things that other men miss and name them without agenda. Let me explain what I mean. Most men who want to impress a woman compliment the things that are easy to see. Her appearance, her obvious accomplishments, the things she shows to the world, and she receives those compliments because they are kind and because she was raised to say thank you. But they do not move her. They do not move her because they do not require anything of the man giving them. Noticing that a woman is beautiful requires nothing but eyes. Noticing that she is accomplished requires nothing but a resume. These observations are about the surface and she knows it. What moves her is when someone notices the things she did not show, the things she said that had something underneath it, the moment she deflected and what the deflection revealed, the quality of her thinking that showed up in an aside she made almost to herself, the care she took with something small that most people would have treated as unimportant. When a man notices these things and names them without needing anything back from the naming, without using the observation as a move or as a way to demonstrate his own perceptiveness, but simply because he saw it and said what he saw, something happens in a woman that she will almost never describe accurately to anyone. She feels found, not complimented, found, seen in a place she did not know she was visible. And that feeling, the specific feeling of being accurately perceived in a private place by a man who asked nothing in return for the perceiving, is one of the most powerful emotional experiences available in human connection. It is not romantic. It is more than romantic. It is the thing that romance is supposed to reach for and rarely does. Younger men can learn to do this, but it requires a quality of attention that is very difficult to sustain when you are still primarily attending to your own presentation. Genuine noticing, the kind that reaches the private places in another person, requires you to have already solved the problem of your own presence, to have become comfortable enough in yourself that your attention has room to move outward, fully and without agenda, toward someone else. That is what decades of living, struggling, losing, recovering, and arriving does to a man's attention. It frees it. It points it outward. And when that freed, outward-pointing attention lands on a woman, she feels it in a way that is completely unlike anything younger attention produces. This is what women will never tell you, not because it is shameful, because admitting it means admitting that what we want most is something that cannot be performed or rushed or manufactured in a gym or a wardrobe or a self-improvement program. It can only be lived into. And the men who have lived into it, the ones who are settled and free and genuinely themselves, carry something that no amount of effort or strategy can replicate. And here is what I need you to hear directly, without qualification, without softening it into something easier to receive. If you are a man over 55 and you have done the work of becoming genuinely yourself, you are not competing with younger men. You are not in the same conversation. You are not playing the same game on harder terms. You are playing an entirely different game, one that only becomes available after a man has lived enough to stop performing and start simply being. The woman who felt something she could not name for 3 days after standing near that 61-year-old man at a work event was not confused. She was responding accurately to something real, to presence without agenda, to attention without need, to the specific and extraordinary experience of being near a man who had nothing to prove and knew it completely. She will never say this out loud in mixed company. She will never post about it. She will give you the cultural answer when you ask what she is looking for. But in the quiet of her own experience, in the moments she replays alone, the men she returns to are the ones who made her feel what I just described. You are capable of being that man. You may already be that man without knowing it. And the only thing standing between you and the impact I just described is the belief, planted by a culture that profits from your insecurity, that what you have become is somehow less than what you once were. It is not less. It is more. It is exactly what she has been waiting for, and she cannot tell you that, so I just did.